Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm just going to give it a couple of quick minutes here to let a few more attendees roll in. I hope everyone is doing well on this beautiful Wednesday, January 19th. It's 11 o'clock where I am. It's 12 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Pacific. I don't know where everyone is joining us from. But it's always interesting to be covering 4 or 5, sometimes even time zones when we're doing these things. The beauty of technology. So I'll just ask you guys to, again, just bear with me for about a minute while we allow some more attendees to just roll in, and we will get the show started very, very soon. I'm going to start off by sharing my screen here. Great. Okay. So it's 11:01 for me, 12:01 for Eastern, and we'll get the show on the road. I'm sure more bodies will roll in as we go along. So thank you for joining us for today's cash flow management and credit card compliance webinar. I am Katie Griffin. I'm responsible for marketing and business development here at Spire, and I'm being joined by Boris Radulovic. Boris, that's the first time I actually get to say your last name. I hope I said it properly.
You said it perfect.
Good. Boris is responsible for partnership relationship management at Payfirma. How you doing today, Boris?
Doing great. It's a beautiful day.
It is good. Glad to have you. Boris will join us a little later on in the presentation, and I'm going to continue forward with talking about cash flow management. And we're going to just start with a little bit of housekeeping, actually. So if I could ask people who are online to just raise their hand and show me that they can hear and see the perfect. That's great. Thank you. I can see that. That's fantastic. So this is a go-to webinar platform. It's not like Zoom. So you can see us and you can see the screen that we're sharing, but we cannot see you. As I mentioned, this is the first of 12 knowledge-based sessions that we're giving throughout the year. There will be one a month. We will be listing the following events on our events page. I encourage you to check that out at www.spiresystems.com. You'll see the events menu. They will be listed very shortly. Attendees will get a certificate of attendance for being here today. For those of you who are collecting CPD points, that is one verifiable CPD hour for you. That will come out to you post-webinar. This is not a training session. It's a knowledge-based session. We will be providing you with some helpful tips and tricks that you can apply for cash flow management in Spire. So please, no questions. We won't be doing Q&A, but I do encourage you to jot down your questions and share them with your Spire consultant. Many of them are on the call here today, so they'll know what it is that you're asking them about, but we won't be doing any Q&A for this webinar, okay? The agenda, I'll be talking about cash flow management, efficiency, different concepts that we encourage you to think about in terms of your receivables and your payables, and different little ways that you can use Spire to help increase cash flow management efficiency, both in AR and in AP. We're going to spend a little bit of time on credit cards and how that's managed in Spire and why your business should be taking credit cards, and as well as Payfirma is going to be joining us, like I said, a little bit later on in the presentation. So before I get started, I have a question here. I'd like to know, what kind of a Spire user are you? If you can see the poll on your screen, are you a novice user? Are you more intermediate? Are you a pro? Or are you maybe not using Spire at all yet? So I'll give the audience just a little bit of time to answer that. And so far, everyone's about intermediate, but only 3% of you have voted. So, oh, we've got some pros in the audience. No pressure, Katie, no pressure at all. And some of you aren't even using Spire yet, so that's interesting. Fantastic. I'll give that just another second and give a few of you some more time to cast your vote. Are you new at Spire? Are you so-so? Do you feel that you're a pro? And are you not using Spire yet at all? Okay. And we've got almost everybody voted here. So that's great. Let's see here. Okay, perfect. So fantastic, thank you. So about 16% are using, are new at Spire, 51 are intermediate, 27 are pro, and about 7% of you are not using Spire yet. So thanks so much for sharing that information with us. So I'm gonna hop into what we're talking about here today. So cash flow management. What makes your cash flow management process efficient? There was a recent study conducted by Randstad where about 800 high executive level people were asked about their efficiency in using their digital technology, so their accounting software or other tools that they would be using. And a big part of what makes your cash flow management efficient is how you're set up. So setting your staff up for success, really. And it was shared, as you can see, that really just over half of the people polled are still developing their process in terms of how digitally superior is what they called it. So what does that mean? That means, are you really using all of the tools and technology that are available to you in your ERP system or the enhancement integrations that you have to really maximize the efficiency of the inflow and outflow of your cash management? And so what are we talking about here? The ability to customize data is something that is very, very popular, and a lot of people are wanting and asking about. And so being able to see specific bits of information where you want to see them. Most packages that come out of the box are kind of limited in terms of being able to add certain fields. And if you're new to Spire, you may or may not know that we have something called user-defined fields, which we'll be taking a look at a little bit later. So being able to access bits of information that are unique and niche to the way that you run your business is very important. Having quick access to reports also helps quite a bit in terms of managing your cash flow. So not just the reports that are included in the software package that you have invested in, but being able to at a glance have information at your fingertips is also something that can affect how efficient you are on a day-to-day basis. Automation, eliminating repetitive tasks, those invoices that come in every month that are for the same amount from the same vendor all the time. Automation becomes very important there, and not having to have that manual entry also helps prevent human error, lack of double entry, or if you're running two systems, not having them integrated as well means you're doing the same thing twice in two places, whereas perhaps your time can be better spent elsewhere. And we also talk about the efficiency. So approvals is a big thing when we talk about payables, when we talk about the outflow of cash, waiting for your CFO or your controller to approve a stack of invoices that are needing to be paid. That can significantly delay how you pay your vendors. And we do want to keep our vendors happy. When we have happy vendors, they tend to pay us more quickly, and that definitely helps. And so using the features that are built into contemporary solutions that can apply workflow-like processes. If you can see me, I say that with quotation marks. So I don't want to be giving any misconceptions that everything is automated and workflows just happen like this. There's thought and work that needs to be put into that. But you can create those types of processes to be more efficient. So I want to give you 3 major tips before I jump into actually showing you some tips in Spire. 1, you want to make frequent projections, right? So by closely monitoring the key cash flow data that exists in your system, you'll be able to make better and more accurate, more up-to-date projections on the cash flow, whether it's inflow or outflow, and you're more likely to keep your business out of any kind of financial trouble that way. So looking at what kind of payments have been promised to you, looking at historically what has been paid is very important. The average time it takes someone to pay an invoice to you. This will help you understand the inflow and the outflow on a monthly basis, whether you're looking at that a quarter ahead, a week ahead, whatever period you're thinking about. The other tip, number 2, is to be early and be proactive. So you want to invoice quickly. Okay, businesses who delay invoicing their clients, just again, that delays the whole inflow of cash. And as it goes for your clients as well, you probably want to ask them, when is your payables run? Not every business pays invoices every week. That's not really the most efficient way to run your accounts payables. And so when you're invoicing your clients, there's no harm in asking the payables person, when is your payables run? You can time your invoicing to that client in time of their next payables run or their monthly payables run. That way, even if your terms say 30 days or 60 days, they're still going to pay when they pay, but you'll be able to manage that inflow of cash a lot better. Small businesses should really avoid not billing and get those invoices out quickly and try and time them with when your clients have their payables run, like I said. I also want to encourage you to identify issues quickly. This is part of being proactive. There's a bit of a customer service-like approach when we talk about receivables. So before your invoice goes into the 30-day bucket for your clients, you want to, when they're in their current state, contact your clients and make sure, did you receive your pen? Are you happy with your pen? Did it meet all of your expectations? Do you have all the proper documentation that you need and a copy of our invoice that you need in order to submit this for payables and make sure that everything is happy and good? Because if there is a problem with the pen, you can definitely address it earlier before that invoice becomes past due and starts to affect your receivables, right? So be proactive, have that customer service-like approach. Another part of being proactive and well prepared is a well thought up backup plan in terms of your cash flow. You want to avoid a cash flow crisis. So whether that means reaching out to your financial institution to ask for some leniency or flexibility, they're more likely to be receptive to you sooner than later. And unfortunately, we know that, there has been some cash flow crises for businesses over the last couple of years. And so having a good backup plan with these projections that I just mentioned earlier is a really good way to stay on top of your cash flow. The last tip I'm going to leave you with before we jump into the program is really using the technology that you have wisely and effectively. So updates. Every software out there today has updates. These updates are published by developers like us, not only to make sure that the product is running as smooth as it possibly can and to fix any issues that may have come up in the last version, but we also spend a lot of time developing new features that are there to enhance your experience, to help make your day-to-day processes more efficient. And so there could be a new feature that's released in the next upgrade that really could make a difference on your workflow throughout day-to-day in terms of cash management. So it's responsible and wise to stay on your updates. Also to continue your ongoing education. Even all the pros out there, the 27% pros out there, you all have something to learn. Everybody has something to learn all the time. There's an infinite amount of knowledge out there, and a program like Spire has a lot of depth to it. And in sessions like today, we tend to scratch the surface on topics, knowledge-based topics, but things like conferences and pre-recorded webinars, or like the Spire Academy, or spending time with your Spire consultant is all about ongoing education. And this is important. It's going to help you stay on top of things like cash management, for example. And I invite you to think outside the box, not just the management reports that are there for you, but also really what is there in terms of ad hoc reports like I was mentioning earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into Spire now. I'm going to start in receivables because we all like to see money coming in instead of money going out. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is really just setup, right? I mentioned earlier, setting up your team for success, making sure that people have the right setup in front of them, the right tools in front of them. And so if you're familiar with Spire, you know that at the top column headers, you can easily right click. And I'm practicing collections today, accounts receivables. So I'm going to get rid of what I don't really need. I don't really need the current status. I do want to see what they last paid. I do want to see the last invoice and payment date. I personally don't really care about their credit limit right now or any of this kind of stuff. Salesperson is always interesting if you want to know. David seems to have a lot of sales, and that's great. How good are his customers at paying? But for my purpose today, I don't really need any of that. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of a lot of these things because I want to set myself up to be able to be efficient in my collections practice, my receivables practice. There's a bunch of user-defined fields here that I will go over after. So as you know, you can also drag and drop your columns if you want. So I'm going to put the balance right over here because that's important to me. And I'm going to focus on a bit of 120 days here. And so this is quite easy to do. One last thing that I want to show you over here, just so I can maximize my screen. You can right click and remove the text. Once you're familiar with these icons, you can easily do that. And then you can also drag over what is important to you at the top. I don't do payroll, but I'm really focused on my communications, my ledger, my calendar. Great. So now I just drag that back over and I am pretty much set up for success. Very easy to do, but in terms of being efficient, it's quite important. So I'm going to go into a customer over here. And one of the things that is crucial in accounts receivables is the follow-up. We tend to think that that really is only reserved for sales and prospecting, but it really is important in collections or accounts receivables as well. The user-defined fields, as I was mentioning earlier, really play a huge advantage for you here. What I want to show you is I've gone ahead and I've created a status, a collection status, if you will, and I've added different types of statuses that one could apply. So promise to pay, credit card, check by phone, if anyone's still doing that these days, EFTs, and a bunch of other categories that make sense for me. And I invite you to think about what makes sense for your business, and you can talk to your consultant about setting these up. And so I've got a promise to pay over here, and the follow-up date, again, crucial, very crucial. I'm going to pick that this person has promised that they are going to pay me by the 21st, which is this Friday, and then the amount, because we can see that in open items, there's a couple of amounts that are past due. And perhaps the contact here, Ahmad, says, well, I'm only going to pay the invoice that's for $100, or maybe they're going to make a partial payment. So in terms of projections, these reports that you're going to issue very quickly, you want to know what's available. You want to know what's coming to you. And by inputting this information, it allows you to do that. So again, I encourage you to talk to your consultants about setting up user-defined fields and really using them to your advantage to be able to use these for projections. And when we talk about projections, I'm going to go ahead and share that with you now. If you aren't familiar with the filters yet in Spire, I highly recommend that you continue your education and learn more about these because they're very powerful. This is, ad hoc reporting. This is analysis. This is, you don't need to have someone write a report for you, but maybe your consultant to help you just a little bit. So I, as you can see before, used these user-defined fields, and I can see them in my grid because I've elected to keep those visible there. But now I want to see what kind of payments are expected in the next 30 days. And so I use the user-defined fields to select any of the payment type of statuses that I've created, and the follow-up to be within X amount of days. So 30 days from now, I want to know how much money is expected to come in. This goes to your projected cash flow, inflow of money, right? There's typical buckets, age buckets, so over 120 days, 30, 90, all that kind of good stuff. The other important thing for cash flow management is any missed callbacks. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the follow-up is crucial, but if I don't actually carry out that follow-up, I've missed an opportunity for a payment. So missed callbacks, you can again change the filter and save those so that they're immediately accessible for you. And then your daily follow-ups in terms of being efficient, setting you up for success. What do I have scheduled to be called for today is an absolutely fantastic way as well. I'm going to jump over into calendars for a second because staying on top of things is important as well. And while Spire has alerts when you first come in to the program, when you first log on, anything that you've created as an alert will pop up. It doesn't do that when you're in the system already every day. So a tiny little workaround that I have is just to launch your calendar on a day-to-day basis. It's kind of like your little agenda, and I did that just by clicking on the number of the calendar, and I can see here the reminders that I've scheduled for myself or that somebody else has assigned for me. Now, while they're not going to like scream at you while you're in Spire, you do get to see that at 9 a.m. you have an EFT reminder. Someone said that they're going to send you an EFT, just give them a call and remind them at 11 a.m., 12 a.m. If somebody else were to assign something to me, I could refresh that by toggling backwards and toggling forwards, and it'll now have any new tasks that someone has assigned to me. So scheduling reminders, using that for, again, reminders to check in and get those payments is super important as well. I'm going to jump back over into my slide for a second, and we're going to talk about another way of being more efficient from the payables side at this point, EFT versus checks, right? So we live in a very digital world, and I think that there's probably a lot of you still out there who are printing checks. I did a bit of math. I'm not going to go through that whole equation for you, but you can easily Google how to calculate the cost of check, and it involves, understanding the yield of ink that goes onto each check that's being printed. So really dependent on what kind of printer you're using, checks can cost you anywhere between $1.30 and $2 per check. Whereas financial institutions are charging a monthly fee, and in that is perhaps an unlimited amount of electronic transactions, depending on who you're banking with. So I highly encourage you to look into that, because we do provide the ability to do EFTs in Spire, and it's much more secure and much more efficient. The Canadian Bankers Association has said that roughly 5% of businesses per year are slowly coming over. And so that means there's a lot of people that are still printing checks out there. But in a world where we've got PayPal and, EFT and Bitcoin, I really think that, EFT is the way to go. Again, it can cost you less than $1 per transaction by the time you calculate everything. And so I think that going in the EFT direction is probably one of the better ways to be managing your cash flow. I'm now going to go over into payables, because at some point we have to deal with the reality of money going out. And so money going out, one of the big issues that I see kind of bottlenecking efficiency in the accounting department is approvals, right? And a lot of people are asking for automation of approvals, right? How do I get this over to the person that needs to approve the invoice? Because the reality is that the person who is entering the invoices to get paid and setting them up for payment isn't necessarily the person who should be making the decisions on what needs to be paid. Unless you're a one-woman, one-man show where you're doing it all, then you know what needs to be paid and what you can afford to pay. But as businesses are growing, you typically have somebody entering in transactions, and they're not necessarily the person who needs to be approving the invoice. So I'm going to show you 3 different ways to to get approvals for invoices. So one of the best ways to handle this is through batches. This is one of the reasons why batches are better. I've already created a batch. If you don't know how to create a batch, please ask your consultant to show you how to do batch-based payables. So I've got a batch that's open here, and I'm going to go ahead and open that batch, and I am going to first email it. I want to email it to Al, my boss, and I want him to tell me what needs to be paid from that. So I'm going to go ahead and just click email, and I'm going to send that off to Al. And I'm going to select a template. There are a bunch of predefined templates that you can use in Spire. Again, if you don't know how to do this, please ask your consultant. This goes to being efficient. It saves time, and we want to be doing a lot more things with our day than creating an email cover page every time. So I've got one here, AP approvals. Hello, Al. Please review the attached batch listing report and kindly let me know when invoices are ready to be paid. So I would send that off to Al. He would get it in his inbox, and that is one way that I can ask for approvals. The second way that I can ask for approvals is very similar. So I'm going to go ahead and I want to print this. I've selected my printer, because we are trying to be as paperless as possible here. I've selected that, and I would go ahead and I would print it for time efficiency, and just to make sure that it all runs smoothly. I've already got one printed here. I'm going to go over to communications. Now, I would have saved that printout on my desktop. I'm going to create a new communication, and I'm going to go ahead and attach that over here, AP batch approval request. And you can see that that will show up as an attachment here. There we go. And the type of communication is approval. You can create different types of communications. Again, talk to your partner about how that's done. So it's an approval type of communication. The subject line will be AP approvals for, maybe I want to put it for today. And then I would write a little message, hi Al, please approve. But I also will assign it to Al, right? So when we went and looked at the calendar earlier, that would show up on the calendar, and I'll show you that in just a second. And it's going to be for today. And if I really want to get granular in the whole thing, I'm going to put it for 9 a.m. And I do want it to alert Al when he first logs into the system. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save that. So that's a second way. So the first way, you can email them. The second way is you can create a communication. Sorry, and I'm going to go over to the calendar now and show users. I've got both myself and Al checked off, and you can see that I've got the reminder here, the task for Al to go ahead and approve that. So the last way is filtered reports, but just before I show you that, I'm going to show you this. So let's say Al has gotten this. He double clicks on the batch PDF. I'll just bring that over to you here. And if you happen to have PDF, Adobe Acrobat PDF, here's a nice little way that you can, Al can go ahead and say, okay, you can pay that one, you can pay that one. Whoops, that was a little too much highlighting for me. You can pay that one, okay? Now he can go ahead and he can save that. He can go back into the same communication, take it off, add the new one, okay? Reassign it to Katie, and he can say approved, and he can say pay highlighted, and then save that. And it'll now, see how it toggled over to green in my tasks. And as I said earlier, if I had this open and I went and I refreshed, I would see that this is now on my tasks, and I know that I can go ahead and pay those invoices. So email communication, really great. And you can have a bit of that, approval process all without printing invoices and having them sit on the desk. The last thing that I'm going to show you is I did create some user-defined fields in payables the same way that I had created them in receivables. And like I said, you want to make sure that you have this looking exactly the way that you want it to look like. I'm just going to go ahead and go over to my user-defined fields here. I created an unlimited text box in terms of transaction numbers. You want to reference maybe which transactions are approved. And again, a bunch of different approval statuses here. So very similar to how we were doing it on the receivables end, you would do for the payables side of things. And you can use your user-defined fields and your communications, include a copy of the original invoice that was there. So made a little invoice here. And so it's all within the record that your approval process can happen either on a one-by-one basis or through a batch, like I was saying, or a large communication, right? Efficiency is also about eliminating repetitive tasks. And one of the great things about Spire is the recurring entries. If you don't know how to create a recurring entry, talk to your consultant. It involves creating that first in the subledger and then retrieving them into the recurring entries portion of the general ledger. But it definitely makes things a lot easier. One thing that I want to point out is that if it's a recurring payment that you're making, you want to make sure that, again, the person who's deciding to pay that in that particular pay run is not necessarily the person who's setting it up. Your batches for approval that I showed you before will pick this up when it's a recurring transaction. So again, it all goes to speaking about the efficiency and how you're managing your payables and how you're managing your receivables, being able to do these projections. If a recurring payment gets picked up in a transaction or gets picked up in one of these reports in your filters that you're using, you now have that more or less automated so that your entry clerk is not spending a ton of time rekeying the same thing over and over again. Ask your consultants to help you with this, because this also works not only from a payables perspective, but from a receivables perspective. So pre-authorized debits as well. If you have clients who regularly pay you, perhaps they're on a payment plan, or perhaps it's a monthly service that you're providing, pre-authorized debits can also happen, and your consultants can definitely help you with that. So I believe that I am done for now. Oh, just a little bit about credit cards before I hand you over to the credit card professionals here, to be honest with you. So why accept credit card payments? When we talk about cash flow management, credit card transactions really should be something that you do accept. And I actually do have another poll here very quickly. Out of our audience today, how many of you are taking credit cards? Do you take credit card payments? Do you not take credit card payments? Will you be taking credit card payments at some point? So I'm kind of curious as to how many of you are taking credit cards. You should see that poll up right now. If you can take a vote, that would be great. Thank you so much. Many of you are taking credit card payments. Some of you are not. Some of you will be soon. I'll just give it another quick minute. About 70% of you have voted. Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and close that poll. So 84% of you are accepting credit card payments, 11% of you are not, and 5% will be soon. So even though a majority of you are taking credit card payments, you will walk away with some helpful tidbits here. And for those of you who aren't or will be soon, pay attention. So why accept credit card payments? It actually helps to legitimize your business, believe it or not. So when clients or buyers see, the Amex, Visa, MasterCard logo either on your website or on your storefront, it actually gives them more incentive to shop with you, because there's many different ways that they can pay or purchase from you, right? And credit card transactions are processed all electronically, as you probably know, and they settle quite quickly. The money is deposited into your business bank account by the processor, typically within 24 hours, right? The other thing that accepting credit cards does in terms of improving your cash flow is it disregards any issues around checks. Bounce checks, invoice collections even, so when people are able to pay right away with a credit card, it eliminates a lot of that cash flow kind of holdup that you might see with traditional payment methods. It also eliminates the risk of having to deal with a lot of fraud as well. And we're going to talk about that with Boris in just a minute, where tokenized and encrypted transactions and the credit card information is vaulted and secured. These are all very important things. So when you have a process in place with your credit cards and your processor, it helps to eliminate risks of fraud. So like I said, if you're not taking credit cards yet, I really think that it's something you should think about. It is relatively inexpensive to be able to take credit card payments and manage those processing fees with someone like Payfirma. Definitely in terms of cash flow, you will see an increase in cash flow and the immediacy of receiving funds in your bank account. And I don't know anyone who doesn't like to receive money quickly in their bank account. So highly recommend that you think about credit cards. And if you are already using credit cards, and let's say you are not using Payfirma, then that credit card information is not being stored in Spire. We're going to talk about that with Boris being PCI and DSS compliant, which just makes your efficiency in the receivables department have to have an extra step. If you're not able to process credit cards through Spire, it means you're doing it with a workaround, and it means that you are somewhat delaying your process in terms of credit card payments. I'm going to just launch a quick video that shows you how you can do a credit card payment in Spire. Pay close attention. Al was able to throw this together for us, and this is how you manage a credit card payment in Spire. I'm sorry, I think that you guys can't hear that. So let me go over to, the joys of technology. Let me go over here. Okay, so again, technical difficulties here, guys. I'm very sorry about that. I will actually provide a link to this video for you in the follow-up, and you'll be able to watch that. It's actually very easy. Al shows us how you can process a credit card payment quite nicely, and have it quickly split, so you pay part of it one way and the other part another way. It actually happens very nicely. I'm so sorry about that. The joys of doing a live session, guys. That's what that's all about. So definitely I'll provide that for you. I'm going to toggle over back to Boris now and allow him to share with you information about being PSI DSS compliant, about processing fees, all of the great stuff that you need to know about credit card transactions. Boris, the joys of a live presentation, right? Picture this.
Always, always.
I thank you so much for bearing with me. I'm going to go ahead and change the presentation over to you. You are now the presenter, and Boris, please take it away.
Perfect. Just one second. If you can see my screen.
I can see your screen, Boris. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Katie. Here's an interesting fact. Credit cards account for the most cases of identity theft in North America. Katie, have you noticed those little chips that we have on cards?
I have noticed those little chips. Yes.
Do you know what those are called?
Little chips on cards.
Little chips on cards, yeah. It's called EMV. It stands for EuroPay, MasterCard, and Visa. So these were set up because there were a lot of problems with people making fake cards. It's a security measure that was put in overseas first to decrease the amount of card fraud, and it worked for a while. But we're finding that a lot of current fraud comes from card not present transactions, and this is where PCI compliance comes in. And we'll talk about that shortly. Thanks, Katie. You can hop off now. To get started, my name is Boris, and I'm the Partnership Relationship Manager at Payfirma. So I'm here to work with Spire partners and consultants, making sure that Payfirma solutions address all your needs and that you're a satisfied Spire and Payfirma client. Now, I'll just run through a quick verbal agenda for today. So we'll start off with an intro to Payfirma. We'll get into card compliance and understanding PCI DSS. We'll get into processing fees and interchange plus, a checklist for the merchant agreements and what they need for boarding, and some benefits for accepting cards. So Payfirma was established in 2010 with a core purpose to make it easy for businesses to accept payments. We're a merchant account provider and processor. So we provide businesses with their own merchant accounts with customized pricing and service plans that are unique to their industry and profile. We build technology that helps businesses from all industries get paid, that helps them make sense out of payment data and empowers partners and businesses to make smarter decisions. So we offer an easy to implement omni-channel product suite that I like to call Omni Magic, meaning we can process for in-store, online, mobile, etc., so that we can support your clients through future business growth and expanding business needs. Now, Payfirma is built on the unique strength of our senior executives, who have decades of experience in payments. And today we process payments for thousands of business owners across North America. We're proud to call Vancouver and Toronto homes to our offices, so we're able to deploy and service business clients across the country. And here's a quick fact. Payfirma was the first to bring mobile payments to Canada in 2015, servicing more than 8,000 businesses across the country. So compliance. So we've all heard of those big data breach stories where cardholder data has been stolen by hackers, thousands or even hundreds of thousands of customers affected. If your business is among an unlucky one that experiences a security breach like this, and it's found that you're not compliant with PCI DSS, you'll likely suffer from fines and penalties from the payment card brands, along with any settlements or reimbursements to customers. So let's talk about how PCI compliance came about. Many years ago, the payment card brands elected to have a standard for assessing and protecting cardholder data and ultimately keeping their customers safe. These card brands include Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover, and JCB, which is an overseas card brand from Japan. So they came together to create PCI DSS, which stands for Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard. So if an organization wants to accept card payments and store, process, or transmit cardholder data, they need to be compliant with PCI DSS. Now, PCI DSS is not a law. It's a set of rules enforced by those card brands, but all businesses must comply or else you face fees, penalties, or account termination. And there are constant security checks that are required to ensure that risks are identified and corrected. We have a blog that showcases the 12 PCI requirements, and I would urge all of you to review them to get a sense of what they are. But it includes things like, install and maintain a firewall to protect cardholder data. Don't use vendor supplied default passwords, so make sure you change all your passwords, and then test the security systems and processes regularly. I want to ensure that businesses understand that they have a responsibility to be compliant before the transaction handoff happens with their processor. And to help with all of this, Payfirma's payment platform, PayHQ, is PCI DSS compliant. So we meet all industry standards for security and encrypt our hardware and software to protect your payment data. Basically, we are PCI compliant so that you don't have to worry. The dreaded chargeback. So just hearing the words can terrify business owners. A chargeback is a process for returning funds to customers after they dispute a transaction. Now, cardholders have the right to dispute a charge for a variety of reasons, and this protects the consumer. But sometimes people try to take advantage of the system to receive free products and services at the business's expense. The chargeback process can be annoying, confusing, and even stressful for businesses, with chargebacks accounting for about 35% of all fraud loss. One of the most common dispute responses by businesses to a chargeback is unfortunately no response. So the business may not know what a chargeback is, or they figure the money is gone and the battle is over, or the transaction is so small that it's not worth disputing. And in that case, the customer keeps both the money and the goods. So a few tips to help reduce chargebacks. Be explicit, right? Chargebacks can be prevented if customers know exactly what they're paying for. Publish clear refund and shipping and cancellation policies that are easy to understand. And then be accessible and be prompt, so that customers can contact you quickly, reducing the possibility of contacting the bank for a chargeback. Ensure that you have basic fraud tools in place as well, things like CVV, AVS, or 3D Secure. CVV being the card verification value, which uses the number code on the back of a card. This ensures that the customer actually has the card in hand. AVS, which is the address verification service, it authenticates that the address on file with the card brand is the same as the one provided by the customer at checkout. And then 3D Secure incorporates tools such as Verified by Visa or MasterPass by MasterCard into the payment system, which adds yet another password authentication requirement for customers. Now, here's a quick story about chargebacks and how it affects businesses. There was a plumbing shop that had $140,000 worth of chargebacks that they were liable for. Now, how did this happen? Well, the person buying the product called in to buy the items. They did this through 5 transactions with 3 different cards. And when they arrived, the shop owner didn't ask for ID to match against the cards, nor did they check check the back of the card to see if it was signed. Then, when the fraudster was in the clear, they called the bank, requested a chargeback, and the business owner was on the hook and lost out on the money and the product. So at Payfirma, we take security of our business partners very seriously. Our payment advisors can help identify key areas of weakened security in your business and suggest products that will help decrease the risk of fraud. We also have a dedicated chargeback team that can help when chargebacks arise. Processing fees. So interchange plus pricing. It's a billing method used by processors. It's typically recognized as being the cheapest way to accept cards, although it can be a little complicated to understand. It actually creates a very transparent agreement between you and your processor because you know their cost and you know their margin. In interchange plus pricing structures, you really have 2 parts. You have the interchange and you have the plus. So the interchange is the base fee that the card brand sets, and then the plus is the margin that the processor takes for facilitating the transaction. So for example, let's say the interchange fee is 1.5%. On top of that, your processor will charge 0.25% plus 10 cents. So for a total of 1.75% plus 10 cents. This would be the total fee that the business would be charged per transaction. And we get a lot of questions on, comparing it, how does interchange plus compare to flat rate pricing? So aggregators like Square offer a flat rate pricing model. So no matter the type of card or transaction, you'll always be paid, you always pay a fixed percentage. The downside of this pricing structure is the cost. So when you process large amounts, you end up paying a substantial amount in fees. With Interchange Plus, as you process more payments in exchange for increased transactions, processors are usually willing to lower their margins further, which means the more you earn, the lower your rate could be. Now, here's a quick checklist of what to expect and what is needed for the merchant agreement. So we'll need a signed and executed application form. You could have one for e-com only, for POS only, or for both. We'll need articles of incorporation. We'll need a photo of the driver's license or licenses for the majority owners. So anyone that comprises more than 51% of the business. We'll need 3 months of the most recent processing statements, 6 months of the most recent bank statements, and a void check or direct deposit form with your business name displayed. And then there may be additional industry-specific items, and that's something to be covered with your payment advisor. You can expect about a 3 to 5 day process for approval once everything's been submitted. However, underwriting may have additional requests, so that can tack on a few more days. Let's jump into some benefits. So benefits of accepting cards, and Katie touched on a few before, but they are, improved cash flow. So you're not wasting time waiting for paper-based invoices. You're not tracking down NSF checks. You're not waiting for checks to clear the bank. You have improved productivity, again, because you're saving time. That's wasted taking trips to the bank, managing accounts receivable, or chasing checks. It's a very automated process when you accept cards. They offer businesses the freedom to adjust to their customers anywhere they go. So you can accept payments anywhere, anytime, and you're no longer confined to store hours or brick and mortar shops. And customers would have no reason to shop around for a more efficient purchasing experience. You can even take business away from competitors that still only deal in cash or in the rare instance of checks. Now, one platform to rule them all. Our payments platform, PayHQ, offers customers the option to pay however they want. And this is at the core of our omni-channel magic. PayHQ is a robust end-to-end payments platform that handles authorization, settlements, and funding. So our omni-channels through Spire include things like the web terminal, also known as virtual terminals, which turn any device with a web browser into a point-of-sale system. We have traditional POS terminals, the most standard payment channel, which is the hardware that allows businesses to swipe or insert to process the payment. And we are integrated directly into the Spire system. So we're ready for any and all transactions you make through Spire. Now, this is what we do for Spire. Payfirma has additional channels and options that you can discuss with your Spire consultants. One of them being a recent launch for Pay by Link solution. So you can send a payment link by email, SMS, or an invoice, and have that link for easy payment. We also have an upcoming B2B EFT solution. Now, as a provider in the space, we have to play the price competitive game, but we always lead with value. Our product offerings and our approach to marketing is substantially different. So we win deals from competitors like Moneris and Chase and Global Payments and other processors every day because we do things differently. We offer a highly differentiated product with added value. Our content marketing helps educate our customers. We build trust and we add more value. And we offer simple, transparent pricing, like I mentioned before, with the Interchange Plus. And finally, here's a testimonial from one of our Payfirma Spire clients. Richard said, "Our small business was looking for payments acceptance integrated into the Spire software. Payfirma solved for this, and we think it's a great match. Our experience with Payfirma is that they were helpful in onboarding us quickly, and they offered us a more competitive rate than that of our previous payment processor." Thank you, Richard. And with that, I'll pass the reins back over to Katie. Thank you.
Thanks, Boris. That was really informational. I think some of the key takeaways there are definitely the being PCI DSS compliant. There's a bit of an alphabet soup for you all. And just to reiterate that, you cannot be housing credit card numbers in your accounting software or on an Excel spreadsheet, or calling up and saying, can I have your credit card number, please? These are all actually very much, Boris, correct me if I'm wrong, in violation of your merchant agreement. And I think you were sharing with us earlier that you are subject to potential fines from Visa, MasterCard, and these card companies if by chance you're found to be housing this information anywhere other than like a Payfirma solution where that information is vaulted, right? And that can be problematic. So picture this, right? We live in a world where malware exists, where ransomware exists, okay? And if client credit card information is there in your database or on your network somewhere, now somebody out there has a list of credit cards that they can do who knows what with, right? And guess who's responsible for that at the end of the day? Your business, right? So I think that's one of the big takeaways here in terms of how important that is. The second one, relative to the topic, cash flow. I mean, money in your bank account almost immediately, Boris, when those transactions are processed. The turnaround time, 24 to 48 business hours, more or less.
That's right.
That's much shorter than a check in the mail, right? Much shorter than a check in the mail. Again, Payfirma is fully integrated into Spire. And as Boris and I have been saying throughout this entire hour, please talk to your Spire consultants. They really are the experts that know your business. We know our software, but they know your business and they know our software as well. And so you are really in good hands with them in terms of applying any of the tips and tricks that we showed you here today. So whether that's adding user-defined fields to your receivables and your payables in order to be able to make projections on cash inflow, how to create those ad hoc reports from your grid known as filters and have them saved and favorited so that you can run very quick reports on demand. If your boss wants to know how much money are we expecting this week, without having to look at your aged receivables, you can have a much more accurate projection to be able to provide to them. Approval processes, there's 3 nice little ways in Spire that you can do that, like we talked about earlier. And then again, the importance of proper credit card processing and being compliant with that. So Boris, thanks so much for spending time with us today. I really appreciate you being here and sharing all that knowledge with us. And again, people should be reaching out to their consultant if they want to learn more about Payfirma, and they will happily loop you in and the conversation can continue from there. Great. So my pleasure. Thanks, Boris. So we're going to wrap it up here. We're just under the hour, which is okay because if you haven't had lunch yet, you get an extra 8 minutes. How's that for efficiency? I appreciate you all being here with us today. Again, so sorry about not being able to play that recording, but I will go ahead and include that in the follow-up email that'll go out to all of you who are in attendance today. It's a nice little URL. You can see how Al quickly processes a credit card in Spire with the Payfirma integration. Again, contact your Spire partner if you have any questions. They will be more than happy to help you. This was the first of 12. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you walked away with some tips and tricks that you can apply to help improve your cash flow management. We will be having the next webinar on Wednesday, the 24th. It'll be about bringing your business mobile. We'll show you a few things in Spire. It'll be a knowledge-based topic about cloud. What is cloud? How should you be mobile? And our guest speakers will be our friends at Evron. So again, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us here today. Boris, have a good rest of the week.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.